And listen, it's nothing new. This is the sport. It used to be Floyd. It used to be De La Hoya. It used to be Sugar Ray Leonard. You know, Chavez was in there as well. You know, you've got these guys that they want to get to a certain status that, yes, you have the crosshairs on your back, but at the same time, you can set all the terms. You are the man. You are the guy. You got to come to me to negotiate. And I believe Canelo relishes that much more than everyone else did.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for Boxing Scene's Top Stories, only on ProBox TV, your boxing channel. We'd like to remind you to download the app to get the full ProBox TV experience. And part of that experience is tapping into the brilliant minds of our champions. We got Chris Algieri and we got Paulie Malignaggi joining us here on Top Stories. Well, Canelo Alvarez has possibly reignited the possibility of a fight against Terence Crawford. Now, not by speaking directly about the encounter against himself, but not entirely believing that the Fundora-Crawford fight will take place. Now, Canelo told Boxing Scene minutes after the WBO order was handed down that he doesn't view that as a nail in the coffin for a potential fight against Crawford. Now, he's talking about the Fundora-Crawford matchup. He said, "I'm not saying that fight can't happen. That order doesn't matter." All right, Paulie, what do you make of Canelo's comments and the door kind of maybe reopening just a little bit when it comes to him facing Crawford?
Canelo is, I don't know, man. Canelo he's the king of just the tip. You know, he loves to tease you. He loves to whirl it around a little bit as far as giving you just enough to make you think, hey, oh, you know what? Well, maybe we're gonna get a big fight out of this guy. You know, he talked about Bivol and Beterbiev. I mean, I talked about he recently talked about he might fight. He's not counting it out of the question that he may not fight Beterbiev or Bivol again, or Bivol. Sorry. Now he's talking about, you know what? Don't count this Crawford Fundora fight because other things could happen. I mean, what could possibly happen? Maybe Canelo's gonna accept the Crawford fight. That's what he's insinuating without insinuating it. Instead of just saying it, he loves to play these games. And then who's he going to fight? Who's he going to fight? Is he going to fight anybody who's going to, you know, satisfy that craving that he leaves out there, that he puts out there? This is boxing's biggest star. We have to admit that, and we know that. But if he keeps on disappointing, he's also, you got to keep in mind, he's also the poster child for the crossover fan base for boxing. So when people want to laugh at boxing or they want to say, oh, boxing does this or boxing does this guy, it starts with him looking good, him doing the right thing, him putting the sport first and not just himself first all the time. It bodes well for the sport because he's the poster child for the sport regardless, right? So when he keeps doing this, you know, you're basically making, yeah, okay, you're going to cash out. You're going to make suckers out of people. You're going to take on the smaller fights, but you're also going to make boxing looked at as something to be laughed about by the casuals, you know, and as boxing fans, listen, you know, you looked at this Turki Al-Sheikh situation when he right away, when he was mad at Canelo and he went and decided to sponsor the UFC fight the same night. I said, bro, I will. Canelo's like a family member you don't get along with for me, right? Like, because he's still in the boxing world. I'm going to protect boxing first. But at the same time, I'm going to criticize him, but I don't like anybody else criticize him outside of boxing because I know what he represents for the sport. And I know what the sport represents. So he's like the family member. All right, bro. Somebody steps out of line. All right, bro. I can criticize him because that's blood, but you can't criticize him because you're not in this relationship, so to speak. But it gets hard, man. You know, he has to take that responsibility on himself. So he's saying this again. Anything he says gets a lot more credibility because it's him saying it. If any of us say something, just boxing talks about it. If Canelo says something, everybody talks about it. So you're liable for it at that point. I don't mind him doing all this. You just can't keep people just sticking in the tip, and then that's it. That's all I'm saying.
Great analogies from Paulie Malignaggi, as usual. George, you said, like, hey, maybe is that door kind of opening? For me, there's no doors for Canelo. He can do whatever he wants. And he kind of said the quiet part out loud when he said that order doesn't matter. I'm Canelo Alvarez. I can do whatever I want. If they can order that thing, they can set that fight. They can set that fight up. I still step in and I say I'm going to fight Crawford. The Crawford fight gets made. And he understands that. He knows that. He can pick and choose who he fights, and he does, and he has, because he is in the driver's seat of the sport. Like, as you said, Champ, he is the face of boxing. He is the money guy. He is the money train. He's the one at the top of the heap, at the top of the heap of treasure that everyone is trying to get there, trying to get that Canelo fight. listen, getting that Canelo fight, that's like a lottery ticket for a lot of these young fighters. You're going to get the biggest payday of your life. And listen, it's nothing new. This is the sport. It used to be Floyd. It used to be De La Hoya. It used to be Sugar Ray Leonard. You know, Chavez was in there as well. You know, you've got these guys that they want to get to a certain status that, yes, you have the crosshairs on your back, but at the same time, you can set all the terms. You are the man. You are the guy. You got to come to me to negotiate. And I believe Canelo relishes that much more than everyone else did, you know, before him. Floyd did too, and he wielded his power. You know, funny, Paul, you said, you know, just the tip. I think of him as waving his scepter because he's the king and he can do what he wants, and you can't really say anything about it. He's going to wave that scepter around and be like, nah, I'm fighting you today, and I'm blessing you with the opportunity to fight the great Canelo Alvarez. And to a degree, he's not wrong. And he's doing what he wants because he can. And when it comes to him, you know, whether this door is opening or just reopened or whatever, it really is up to him. And a lot of that could be in regards to what he saw in the Majumov fight. He might have looked at that fight and go, ooh, this guy is small. Oh, this guy, you know, he struggled with Majumov, some things he did, and he couldn't really physically push him around the way he did the welterweights. Maybe there is a place where this isn't such a quote-unquote tough fight on paper, but to the casual fans, to the crossover stars, and to the amount of money it can generate, maybe not such a bad idea. And in terms of where Canelo is at, yes, he's been fighting a lot of these guys, the Berlangas, the Munguias. I'm not knocking them by any means, the John Ryders. I'm not knocking any of those guys. They're all talented in their own right. But the fact that he has the ability to step over the #1 and #2 contender and then fight these opponents speaks to that. And he is kind of running out of big name opposition. Granted, he makes a ton of money fighting the Berlangas of the world and
that's actually a question that I have, Champ. By doing this, is he kind of overlooking Berlanga? Is that a disrespect to Berlanga?
No, I don't think so.
He's insinuating like I could just decide I'm going to fight Crawford and that fight doesn't happen.
But Paulie, listen to this.
For you to think that means you've already gotten past Berlanga, right?
This is why it's not, because he could lose to Berlanga and still fight Crawford. And that's the
truth.
For
no title?
That's the truth.
For no titles?
They'll still make the fight. You still can make the fight, and he understands that. You know, of course, he's going to try and get the rematch right away and whatever not. But like that's the level of power that Canelo pulls. You know, I kind of think of like when De La Hoya fought Felix Sturm. You know, and Sturm, for all intents and purposes, beat De La Hoya that night, right? I mean, like most people kind of thought that. Still went on to the bigger fights after that. You know, he's got there's so much power and money behind him. He can look ahead. He can play 3D chess like a lot of other fighters can't. You got to kind of deal with what's in front of you. He doesn't have to.
Yeah, Canelo, as they say in sports, you know, superstars, they get different kind of treatment, and I think Canelo has that kind of treatment in boxing. And just to be very clear, Canelo has not participated in any conversations regarding a super fight against Terence Crawford since he expressed his disinterest for that fight over a month ago in LA while preparing for Edgar Berlanga. And of course, if anything develops, we'll have it for you on Boxing Scene's Top Stories. And a quick reminder, scan the QR code, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got a great week of fights coming up with September 11th with Wednesday Night Fights, the best live fight series in all of boxing. And then 3 days later, it's that big card with Berlanga taking on Canelo Alvarez. I'm George DeMatteis. This is Boxing Scene's Top Stories.
He's the pride of Guadalajara, the Mexican maestro, the unified super middleweight champion of the world, Canelo Alvarez. His challenger, undefeated knockout artist and pride of Puerto Rico, Edgar Berlanga. It's prime time.
Canelo versus Berlanga, plus Lara versus Garcia, Saturday, September 14th, live on PBC pay-per-view on Prime Video.
For more ProBox TV, scan the QR code on the screen or go to the App Store and Google Play. ProBox TV, your boxing channel.